Christmas Eve to you all. We're here to discuss very briefly the Manchester City game on Boxing Day. I'm sure you're all excited and can't wait for Boxing Day, 8 o'clock kickoff. Me and Carl are going to be discussing all things Man City Newcastle. Carl, how are you this morning?
Yeah, well, thank you, mate. Well, I know you've just mentioned it's snowing up north. We've actually got sun here, so it's a strange one. Strange one.
It's always shining down the south, isn't it?
Something like that.
But yeah, get your comments in. What do you think Steve Bruce will go with in terms of the team? Any predictions? Get them in as well, because this is going to be a long, long evening at the Etihad tomorrow night. We're going to talk about Manchester City first, Carl, and we'll look at the last 6 games in all competitions. Obviously, they won on Tuesday night against Arsenal in the Carabao Cup, something that we couldn't do. We couldn't get through to the semi-finals, and if we'd actually won, we would have had an away game to Spurs at the London Stadium. And as you can see, it's been pretty relentless in Manchester City. Not many hiccups. Obviously, they beat Arsenal, which I mentioned, 4-1 on Tuesday evening. A couple of draws against West Brom, which was a bit of a surprise in Slaven Bilic's last game, Carl. But generally, I think since the kind of the first 6 games where everyone was kind of adjusting to this, obviously there was that freak result against Leicester where they lost 5-2, but it's been quite steady and quite consistent from Manchester City, in particular at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they've started to, well, they've almost been kind of relentless in possession and attacking for us, and they've started to pick those goals up, like you said. You know, they had a few blips, but looking well, they're starting to look a bit more like the Man City that we expect to see. I don't think they're quite as relentless as Liverpool right now, but they're certainly getting there. And you know, the more goals they put in, I'm really worried that they're going to put a few past us on Boxing Day. Really worried, mate.
But you look at their last few home games in particular, you take away that West Brom result, which West Brom defended very, very well. 5-0 against Burnley, 2-0 against Fulham, 3-0 against Marseille in the Champions League. I think a really important victory for Manchester City was that away win at Southampton, because Southampton have been playing really well. And it was actually a very, very good game, which was on Amazon. Remember, Newcastle Fans TV are sponsored by Amazon as well. And they'll have the coverage of Liverpool's trip to St James's Park on the 30th against Newcastle. But attacking wise, especially at home, Manchester City will always go for it, Carl. They will always go for it. And you look at the likes of De Bruyne, Sterling in particular, they're the 2 players that are really in form.
Absolutely. Like you've just said there, Sterling for the past couple of years now, he had a bit of a blip, didn't he, when he first signed for them, and then since then he's just been coming on leaps and bounds, especially over the last season. He's been absolutely dynamite. Well worth his price tag. You know, it's good to see an English player being able to do that and being as prolific as he is. But it's the last thing that we need is an informed Raheem Sterling. And Kevin De Bruyne, as you said, unbelievably one of the best central midfielders in the world for me. And I think he, again, although we talk about him a lot, I still think a lot of things that he does go under the radar. And you know, if he's on form and pulling strings, no disrespect to Sean Longstaff and John Joe Shelby, but if you know, if there any of their recent performances or anything to go by, we're really going to struggle. Really going to struggle. The last thing we want to be is negative, but we've got to be realistic. On paper and realistically, they're miles better than we are. And I am interested to see what Steve Bruce can do against this Man City side to try and stifle that attacking force, mate.
Is Kevin De Bruyne the best player in the Premier League on form, if he's on form?
It's yeah, best all round footballer. I think he is absolutely. I'm a huge fan of Roberto Firmino. I think he's really underrated as a footballer, but I think De Bruyne is arguably the best all round footballer in the Premier League. Definitely, mate. Yeah, he does, like I say, he does things that go unnoticed. That when you actually look back and watch him, you think, Jesus Christ, like he can do anything. He can do anything. His stature as well, like the size of the lad, like. He just gallops past people. His passing ability is unbelievable, and we know he can strike a ball from 30, 40 yards if he wants to as well.
Yeah, of course. And you look at Manchester City's next 2 games as well, Carl. It's Everton away on the 28th, and then they've got Chelsea, which is it's a very brutal, tough Christmas for Manchester City. And then they've got Man United in the EFL Cup. That was obviously the other side of the draw at Old Trafford. Carl, they might prioritise other games to this, and they might make changes for this game, considering they have just played Arsenal as well, and they might look at Everton and Chelsea going, well, if we play a couple of players that might not be, let's just say, first choice if Manchester City had a must-win game. Could that benefit Newcastle in some sort of way?
I mean, it could do, but then I was thinking about players that haven't been playing that much, and one of them, to be honest, who hasn't got a lot of minutes, and it's down to injury, and also maybe not being Pep's first choice for some reasons. Bernardo Silva hasn't been the player. You know, if you got him on the bench and he's a second string player, then I'm still worried. Do you know what I mean? It's definitely it will definitely benefit us on the whole, but their bench is far superior to ours. You know, their second string side is far superior to ours. And that's worrying, really worrying.
It is, isn't it? And look, Manchester City, we're talking about their players, but the manager, he's got their style of football. It's very much if Plan A doesn't work, how can we improve Plan A in particular? MC Hammers does agree with that. I'd rather we have a go and get smashed than just sit and do now. We'll talk about Newcastle very, very shortly. But Carl, we'll go back into Guardiola. Look, he's very relentless, possession based. I can imagine Man City will have about between 75 to 80% possession of the football. It's a style of play that you just have to admire, don't you?
Absolutely. I'm just going to bring something up here, mate, as well. Bear me 2 seconds. It's football that we can only dream of playing. It's what we were used to back in the 90s per se. But yeah, they bear me 2 seconds.
No rush, no rush.
One.
Well, have a look at some of the comments while you're sorting that out. Rowan Gulliver says he'll most likely play 5 at the back, which is fascinating to say the least. I think it will be 5 at the back. I wouldn't even be against 8 at the back after that game against Brentford. I was so angry with that. But you've got some stats, haven't you, Cole?
Yeah, so open play, 14 goals, which is the 74% effective in comparison to the amount of chances they've created from open play. So to convert 74% of those is obviously something that we need to close down the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, and it is going to be a tough day for Jonjo Shelvey and Longstaff if those are the pairing in centre midfield. I'm hoping Hayden's push back in the middle, to be honest, mate. You can see there a lot of their play is in the middle third, and they're still effective at 33% in the opposition third as well. It's free flowing football. You know, there's barely anything in their own third. In their own third, they're from the middle to the front third, so they're very relentless attacking side and very fluid. And how we stop that, I don't know. And I am just worried that Bruce will sit five behind the ball, and like you and a few of the guys in the comments have said, I'd rather us just go out and have a go, to be honest. I really would.
Yeah, we'll touch about what Steve Bruce might do in a second, but looking at that attacking sides, 37% is down the left-hand side. You look at Benjamin Mendy in particular, likes to be, he's probably Manchester City's first choice left-back most of the time. You've got Cancelo that can also do a job there as well, but it is mainly Benjamin Mendy on the right-hand side. Kyle Walker, we touched about De Bruyne, likes to drift in a little bit to the right. He obviously is more central, but he likes to, you always see those crosses from the right-hand side from De Bruyne, and they're just absolute beauties at times as well. So that's something to look into. But I think Manchester City have got so many threats in so many different areas. You just think, well, where on earth are we going to, is there a weak link to Manchester City? Everyone's talked about, Carl, maybe the centre-halves.
Yeah.
But the centre-halves have actually looked quite decent at the minute. And John Stones and Ruben Diaz have formed a partnership which has kept Aymeric Laporte on the bench, which everyone would have said Laporte was probably Man City's best centre-half before a ball was kicked this season.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that myself, what you just said there. You know, arguably you could look at their centre halves as being the weak link, but again, you know, John Stones is a completely different player to what we've seen over the last three seasons. I won't go ahead and say he's warranted his £50 million price tag, but he's, like you say, he's doing a really good job and created a great partnership. And to keep Laporte out of the side is a massive feat. So that in itself speaks volumes in terms of what they're doing at the back. And if we're playing Callum Wilson isolated up top on his own, he's going to struggle with them. He really is. So I don't know how we break them down. I really don't. We've just got to. I imagine Maximan's not going to be in the squad. So I think that would be the type of game that he'd be up for. And I am excited to see how Ryan Fraser might cope, to be honest. I think he's going to have the bit between his teeth, and I think he'll want to have a go at them. but we need to have support for Callum Wilson if we've got any chance of having a go at Man City on Boxing Day.
Yeah, of course. I think it's interesting because we normally will have one sort of slightly easier game and one difficult game over Christmas. We've always seemed to kind of, well, we'll not sacrifice any game, but if we were going to prioritize one game, we prioritize maybe the home game, for example. But when you look at the fact card, it's City away and Liverpool at home. Obviously, we've got Leicester a little bit later on in the festive period, but you can't really prioritize one or the other. We've not expected any points from the next two games. Some would argue the next three games. So we need to make sure that we go make ourselves very difficult to beat. Let's talk about Newcastle.
Yeah.
I think 4-5-1 would be better than 5-4-1 because we haven't got the central defenders. And Steve Bruce has never really gone for it against these big sides. He wants to try and stay in the game as long as possible. He wants to make sure that we don't get battered, really. I think if you offered Steve Bruce a 2-0 defeat right now, I think he'd snap your hand off for it. Do you agree with that? Maybe 4-5-1, maybe pack the midfield in the centre, even if it does isolate a Wilson or a Gale up front? Or would you like us maybe to go for it a little bit more and maybe just stick with the formation we've been going with?
I think you just hit the nail on the head perfectly. It really comes down to what Steve Bruce wants to get out of the game, and if he just if he just wants to make us hard to beat, then absolutely pack the midfield, because you need to put as much pressure on the likes of Kevin De Bruyne as possible. We can't have him pulling the strings, and he will be the one that will, like I said, pull the strings and unlock the rest of the play for Manchester City. So, yes, if we're going to look to just not get beat and play some miserable football and accept that's what we need to do against Man City, then I'm fine with that. I am fine with that. If that's what he's going to set up to do from the first minute, fine. But I personally would like to see us go for it, because we're not expected to get any points out of the next three games. So essentially, we've not got anything to lose. And yes, I know goal difference is a huge factor, but I've mentioned that we might get pulled into a relegation scrap, but that was just out of anger from what's happened over the last couple of weeks. If we are realistic, the three teams that are picked to go down are worse than us, in my opinion, and I think they will struggle more than we will throughout the season. So I'd prefer us to go on the attack and try and get a result out of it, mate. If we get smashed, we get smashed. I'd be more happy with that personally. I know that doesn't make sense, but
it does. It does in some sort of Newcastle fan world, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Let's see if we can try and predict the 11 call that Steve Bruce will go with in the game against Man City. I think obviously Guardiola will be a goal. I know Dubravka's back in back in training, but I still think we'll not see Dubravka. I would imagine that they might target the FA Cup game as a game where they might give him minutes and see what they think, and then they'll make a decision after that and who the number one of the club's going to be. Are we agree on 4-5-1?
Yeah. I think realistically that's what will happen, mate. Yeah.
So I think defenders. I think if depending on who's fit again, Steve Bruce has only his press conference this morning, so we're just a little bit earlier than that press conference. But I'll go with the four that I think Steve Bruce will go with. I think he'll go Matt Ritchie left back. I think depending if Hayden is not massively fatigued, it wouldn't surprise me if Kieran Clark and Federico Fernandez stick in the centre of defence, just because of how difficult we're expecting this game to be. And I think Emil Krafth will come in at right back just to bit of fresh legs. DeAndre Evans played 2 games in a row, and we've not really heard from Javier Manquillo. Do you disagree with anything in the back four that I've mentioned there, Carl?
I wouldn't. No, I definitely agree with the centre halves, and I think it would be wise to put Ritchie there, if not Dummett, for a bit of it. We need experience at left back in this game, 100%. And I'm not sure whether it will be Krafth or Manquillo, to be honest, because I would personally prefer Manquillo there out of the two. But I think you're right. I think it might be Emil Krafth, because, like you said, we've heard absolutely nothing from Manquillo. If DeAndre Yedlin's there, we've got pace, but defensively, he's I don't know. Is Sterling playing out on the left this season?
He has been at times. I think when you look at it, Jesus has obviously been the main man this season because Aguero's injury concerns have been highlighted for sure. Sterling's. The thing is, I don't even know if Raheem Sterling will play. I think that game against Everton, because of the way Everton have been playing, Guardiola might prioritise and go, do you know what? I think we can still beat Newcastle with Bernardo Silva on one side, maybe Mahrez on the other. Mahrez is still a big threat anyway, and maybe look at it like that. But you're right, Carl. Our right back options are woeful.
Yeah, It's yeah, that in itself, like Mahrez and Bernardo Silva being kind of the second string players, is just stressing me out already. It's sorting me out.
Definitely. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll go Paul Dummett because I didn't think of that. I think Paul Dummett might be better for this game. So Paul Dummett, Federico Fernandez, Kieran Clark, and Emil Krafth is what we believe that'll be the back four. We're going to go with 5 in the midfield. I don't think Sean Longstaff starts this game, not because of lack of form or whatever you want to call it. I think it's more the fact he has played a lot of games.
Yeah.
I think Steve Bruce might just take him at the firing line, especially with the criticism that he got for his performance against Brentford. John Joe Shelvey, Isaac Hayden. Isaac Hayden, I don't know whether he's going to be, again, very similar to Sean. He's played a lot of games, a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
Who I would potentially wouldn't mind. I think Matty Longstaff is not going to play, but I would love to see Longstaff, Shelvey, and Hendrick, because Hendrick's probably the freshest out of the centre midfielders that we've got left, unfortunately. And I think we need probably a little bit of something different in terms of Shelvey, and I'd love to see Matty Longstaff just kind of be like a little bulldog and just literally, make it difficult for Manchester City, press them all the time. When he is going to be fit, it's just has he played enough football, and will Steve Bruce make that decision?
I really, really wish you would. I've said quite a lot. I don't prefer Matty Long. I think Matty Longstaff is the better all-round footballer than Sean, or more of a dynamic player. That being said, I agree with you, and I don't think Jeff Hendrick is, a great footballer. But in this game, if we need anything, we need work rate. We need to outwork them. That's what we need. And Jeff Hendrick, he's got an engine on him, to be fair, and he does work hard. He's just not technically great. But yeah, him, Longstaff, and Shelvey wouldn't be a bad shout if Hayden's not going to be in. Because I do agree, he's played a lot of games, and if we're expected to get beat anyway, I've got no. I hate saying this because I've personally been bashing Steve Bruce a lot, but he can't lose in this game, in my opinion, because we're not expected to get a result. So whatever he tries, I'm fine with it, in all honesty, which is ridiculous coming out of my mouth.
On the wings, just like I say, I'm looking at the players that we've got. If you scroll down a touch further on the screen, Carl, just have a little look at the striking options as well for the viewers. Yeah. Again, I'm not too sure about playing Miguel Almiron in this game on the wing, in my particular opinion. I think because of this conundrum, we've got Liverpool, we've got Leicester. Ryan Fraser, I think, needs to play in, some would argue, the most winnable game, and I think probably the most winnable game is Leicester. So I'd probably throw him in this game against Man City, because I think Liverpool's the toughest out of the 3 games we've got.
Yeah.
So I would go Ryan Fraser on one side, and then on the right-hand side, particularly in Richie on the left, because I think we do need, in particular, stop Kyle Walker from really battering us down this right-hand side. And I think Fraser on the counter-attack potentially could do a bit of damage, because Benjamin Mendy defensively is a little bit suspect. We haven't really seen a great deal from him. He's quite injury-prone as well. But you could also argue Joe Linton. Who would be the 2 that you'd go with?
Again, like we've just said, for me it's work rate, and again, to be fair, Joe Linton's work rate, when he's actually in, his work rate's decent defensively. I know there's times where he does seem a bit suspect, but I want experience as well. So 100% Richie and Fraser would be the ones for me to start. 100%. They've got more grit in them as well. Joe Linton's got work rate, but they're Fraser and Richie are more gritty players, and I think they'll both spur each other on as well. So 100%, I'd prefer those 2 to be starting on the wings, mate. I think Richie and Dummett would be a good partnership.
Yeah, and then you've got the one man up front. People will argue that Dwight Gale needs minutes. Is this a game where you give him minutes? People will say Callum Wilson's our best striker. He has to play him week in, week out. Yeah. Do you burn him out, though? And again, we have got 3 games. I can't see Callum Wilson starting against Man City, Liverpool and Leicester, in my particular opinion, because if he gets injured, we're absolutely knackered.
Yeah.
But again, I don't want to not start Callum Wilson, but I'll probably start Dwight Gale. And he needs minutes. He is quite fresh, but if we're still in the game, at least if you bring Wilson on with 20 minutes to go, or if we're only a goal behind, you never know, we might be able to nick a point. But where do you stand on this, Carl?
I'm torn on it, mate, to be honest. And the reason for that is, don't get me wrong, Dwight Gale isn't anywhere near the striker that Callum Wilson is, but he will get into similar positions. So, in terms of Callum Wilson being dropped for the right reasons, like you've said, because he's susceptible to injury as well, because he's had bad injuries in the past, and like I don't want him burnt out at all, because we do need him for the rest of the season. So I wouldn't be opposed to Dwight Gale starting. Hard worker, he'll be chomping at the bit as well, because he'll want to prove the critics wrong that he can't do it in the Premier League. And there's no better side to do that against than Man City and Liverpool. So either of them starting, I'm happy with. If I was Steve Bruce, and I would probably start Dwight Gale as well, but I've got a horrible feeling he might start Andy Carroll.
That'll be an interesting one. I was just going to mention that Carroll is another option. Again, this is a write-off for me. This is a write-off this game anyway. Yeah. So if you're going to throw Andy Carroll and throw him on, I'm not really too bothered either way. As long as we can get out of this without embarrassing ourselves and not getting any injuries, I think it's probably a job well done. And if we get anything from the game, it'll be a steal or a bonus, one of the two. Let's finally talk about the manager before we finish things off, Carl. There's a lot of pressure on Steve Bruce. The vast majority want him out now. We're looking at 3 very difficult games, and then we have the FA Cup game against Arsenal, Sheffield United, which is now looking at a massive game on the 12th, and then we've got Arsenal in the league. It's a very difficult time of year in terms of the games that we've got, but Newcastle seem, under Steve Bruce, have picked out a couple of results when he's under immense pressure. Like I look at the game against Crystal Palace when Steve Bruce is under pressure and we got a result. West Brom, after all the COVID issues, we got the W, we got the win. Can you see any surprises in this Manchester City game that Steve Bruce could potentially work a miracle and get something off Guardiola and City?
Honestly, like we say this, we know that we're not expecting anything from these games, and realistically, we'll say we're not going to get anything from these games. But I'll categorically guarantee we're going to get something from one of these 3 games. It's just going to happen. How it's going to come about, I don't know. Whether it's VAR or a dodgy penalty, or we end up playing unbelievably well, and Steve Bruce works some sort of masterclass. We are going to get some points from one of these games, and I know I might get bashed for that, but it happens. Not just with Steve Bruce, it's always happened. As being a Newcastle fan, we've pulled results from out of our arse that we don't deserve, and I just feel as well. Yes, he's under pressure, but again, everyone knows that we're not expected to get anything from these next 3 games. So I almost feel like, again, he's kind of protected, if that makes sense. Because anyone's going to turn around and say, well, whatever happens, well, you shouldn't be beating the likes of Man City, Liverpool, and Leicester in form again. So what can you expect as Newcastle fans? So I think he's protected. We'll get some points from these games. How it's going to come about, I don't know. But we just will, because that's what happens to Newcastle and Steve Bruce.
I think over the Christmas period as well, everyone will have at least one game where they don't perform as well, and if that happens to us against either Man City, Liverpool, or Leicester, burnout. But these big squads can make changes, and especially Liverpool in particular, I think all the midfielders are pretty much back in contention. I saw Thiago was training yesterday, Shaqiri, Milner. If you put them 3 in against Newcastle, they would still do enough to beat us. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I'm not confident at all. But Carl, quickly, prediction.
Man City, I think we'll get beat 4-0 by Man City. I've just seen in the comments Chris Dillon calling me a pleb and stuff. Mate, I appreciate that. What I've said, 100%. I know it comes across that way. That's fine. This isn't me realistically thinking that we'll get points, but I just see that something will happen. It usually does. But yeah, I think we'll get hammered 4-0 at least.
It's all right, Carl. Jonathan Young agrees with you. He agrees with Carl, knowing Bruce's look at is getting 1 point from the next 3 games, possibly against Leicester. So there you go. Merry Christmas to all the subscribers as well that love Carl out there. For me, my prediction, my heart says 4-0 City. My head says 5-0 City. So I'll go with my heart because it's Christmas and agree with Carl and go 4-0 Manchester City, unfortunately. I would just like us to have a shot on goal. I'd like us to actually look a little bit better, because I think in midfield in particular, and that I hope we play 3 centre midfielders if we're going to be defensive, because we're going to be absolutely outrun if we don't, and if it is just two games, then 2 centre midfielders, then we will struggle.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, and that is the preview for the Manchester City game. It was just a quick one because obviously we've got Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. Obviously, have a fantastic Christmas. Chris has just come back and said to you, it'll be a Christmas meal. Have a good one. That's all the best to you, Chris, as well.
Merry Christmas, mate.
Sam from Newcastle Fans TV, just a reminder that the Green and Mullen Show Christmas special is now on NFTV Extra. Me and Sam were on last night talking about all things Green and Mullen Show, having a few drinks as well. So if you've got nothing to do on Christmas Eve and you've done all your outwin, thoroughly recommend you give that a watch. But on Boxing Day, we will have all the reaction for Manchester City. We'll have the watch along, we'll have the quick thoughts with myself, and then we've got the score and the players and the last word live on Boxing Day. It'll probably be a late one, but you know what? You never know. Christmas is a strange time of year. We might get a Christmas miracle. My thanks to Carl.
Thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate coming on this morning.
No problem. Have a great Christmas. Have a great Christmas to all of you out there. And we'll see you on Boxing Day for Manchester City versus Newcastle. Have a great Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everyone.